Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My name is Ahmed from Egypt. I would like to ask, why doesn't the Jews not acknowledge of the state of Palestinian, and they know that the Palestinian is Arabia, and they know that they take all the land from the Palestinian by the force, the gun and the cannon and everything like that?
As I understand the question, it is this: why does Israel not permit the Palestinians to be represented by the leadership of the Palestine Liberation Organization? Is that your understanding of the question?
That's good.
It's a very searching question, a very important question. I tend to talk too long. I'll try to keep my response brief. There is no question but what the PLO, headed by Yasser Arafat, is the acknowledged leader of the Palestinians wherever they live, whether they be in the occupied territory or in South Africa. No question about it. But Israel is in a very unique political position thanks to the United States. Israel does not have to deal with its neighbors in a normal fashion. The lobby for Israel in the United States has become so effective, so efficient in influencing the behavior of the U.S. government, that Israel has been able to count on American support for its policies wherever they turn. That means that Israel, because of the influence of Israel's lobby in the United States, is able to behave in an unprecedented manner in dealing with the Palestinian leadership. In every other political situation of this sort, one party has been able to select its own leadership, and the other party has been able to select its own leadership. But thanks to the power of Israel's lobby in the United States and the support that our government gives to the leadership of Israel, Israel is able to take this unprecedented position of demanding the right to select the leadership of the Palestinian movement itself. That's the root of the problem. Now, were it not for the extraordinary power of Israel's lobby in the United States, the government of Israel would be forced to come to terms in a normal fashion with its neighbors, including the Palestinians in the occupied territory. But as long as Israel can depend upon the uncritical, undivided, powerful financial, military, economic, and moral support of the United States, it does not have to behave in a normal fashion. That's the answer to your question, whoever the questioner is. And I believe there is something that that gentleman can do to make a change. At the risk of being self-serving here tonight, Mr. D-Dot, I would urge that gentleman to get a copy of my book out in the lobby before he leaves. My book is entitled "They Dare to Speak Out." It tells exactly how Israel's lobby has been able to attain this enormous control over the policies of the U.S. government. And if that gentleman would get a copy of that book and read it, and then mail it to someone he knows in the United States, he will help to bring understanding among the people of the United States about how U.S. policy in the Middle East is made. Because despite our enormous potential for communication, despite our books, despite our magazines, our newspapers, the the American people simply are in ignorance about how U.S. policy is made. They really don't know about the power of Israel's lobby, and each of you here tonight can help to awaken their interest in this subject, to provide them information, to give them inspiration to help break this enormous grip that Israel's lobby has on the U.S. government.
My question to Mr. Paul Findley is this, that the American nation today is on the side of Israel, and therefore it is alienating itself from the Muslim world. It is also becoming well, I'm trying to get the question across. In other words, the American nation is sacrificing itself and become an enemy of the Muslims. I would like to ask you the question, the Americans who are a democratic society, how did they allow themselves to become enslaved by the thinking of a few Zionists in their country? How did they allow themselves to become enslaved in their minds? The second question is this. It's tied up with this. It's just tied up with this, and you can answer at the same time. The second question is this, that don't you think if Israel is set up for destruction, then America will also have to be set up for destruction, because the destruction of America will be the destruction of Israel, and Israel is destroyed. Don't you think that America is destroying itself by supporting Israel? So if Israel is set up for destruction, then similarly America will destroy itself in the process by supporting Israel. Those are the two questions.
Thank you, brother.
I hope I grasped the two questions. The first, I believe, is why has the United States become the slave of the State of Israel? Does that summarize the question? At the risk of trying to sell my book, that's what my book is all about. I was defeated in my bid for re-election to Congress in 1982 after having served 22 years representing a rural area, an agricultural district of the state of Illinois. I was defeated because I was the only member of the Congress who was challenging U.S. policy in the Middle East, that is to say, who was criticizing the support our government was giving to the State of Israel. The only one out of 535. In the U.S. Senate are 100 members, 2 from each state. In the House of Representatives, there are 435 members. 535 people altogether. And ladies and gentlemen, as of today, there is not one of those 535 members willing to speak out for what is best for America, for what is best for humanity, and unwilling to speak out to challenge the policies that our government carries out, which provides blind support to the State of Israel. Now, I could keep you here all night and explain in detail why it is that every one of these 535 elected representatives of the American people are so terrified of Israel's lobby that they dare not speak out and challenge what is going on today. One would think that given the terrible brutality that is visited every day of the year against the poor Palestinians in the occupied territory, that the American congressmen, the American senators would be lined up 50 deep every day in their chambers to speak with outrage and anguish about what was going on in the occupied territory. But you can search the congressional record, which prints every word that is said in both chambers of the Congress, and not find one word of criticism of Israel for its behavior. In a nutshell, it is because the American congressmen are afraid of the power of Israel's lobby. They are convinced that if they challenge the lobby, they will pay a price next election day, and politics is survival. They all want to be reelected. Now, why are they terrified? Don't they hear from their constituents who are concerned about what happens in the occupied territory? The truth is, most of the American people today are asleep. They don't know what's going on. They're worried about their own pocketbook, their own job, their own family, their own neighborhood, their own city, their taxes. They don't give much attention to what's going on in the Middle East. And they do not realize, as this gentleman's second question suggests, that the price they will ultimately pay for their blind support of Israel's military policies may be a terrible price indeed. It's eating away at the foundations of American democracy. Israel's lobby has been able to stifle dissent, to frighten members of Congress, to keep them from speaking out. It has also reached its arms of influence out into the universities and colleges. It has reached the business community, now only a tiny portion of the American population is supporting the lobby for Israel in the United States. But that tiny portion of the population supports it with such zeal, such fervor, such persistence, that it is able to dominate the debate on Capitol Hill and control almost to a total degree the making of U.S. policy in the Middle East. It's a dreadful situation that threatens the cherished institutions of the United States. All that is needed is for the American people to stir themselves, to become aware of what's happening, to know about the power of Israel's lobby, to become aware of the fact that they share the guilt. They share the guilt of the dreadful atrocities being perpetrated against the Palestinians every day in the year. They will then exercise their influence through the electoral process, and changes will come. It's my hope that my book and the work of others in the peace field will somehow awaken the American people, create understanding in time to avert the dreadful calamity that this gentleman's second question forecasts. Thank you.
On the question of is the book free or should we pay for it, please let it be known that if the price of the book has to be what it really is, then 5 rands would be by far insufficient. The book has been heavily subsidized by the Islamic Propagation Center of Durban, and Mr. Paul Findley doesn't make anything on it. Thank you. Next question, please.
I do believe that the Jews and the Arabs have come from one seed, and that seed is Abraham. And they ought to be brothers. But the question is that they are not brothers today because they're still fighting against each other. Now, Mr. Dida uses the Holy Bible for a lot of his questions, for a lot of his answers. I would like to ask Mr. Dida to quote from the Bible, from Genesis chapter 16 and verse number 11 and 12 to answer that question.
Why are the Jews and the Arabs split? They're still fighting, and you want him to quote from Genesis?
If Mr. Dida can please use the Bible again as he normally does to give an answer for the reason why they are still fighting today. Genesis chapter 16, verses number 11 and 12.
Could you read the statement in the Bible?
This is the angel of the Lord which spoke to Hagar in the desert. He said, "You are now with child, and you will have a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he will live in hostility towards all his brothers."
So
that's why they are still fighting today between the brothers, which are supposed to be brothers, because Bible gives us prophecy that this will happen, that they will live in hostility towards each other. Mr. Dida have quoted from the Bible. When he used the Bible, the question is, why are they still fighting against each other?
thank you.
I think in a way you are answering the question yourself. Why are they fighting one another? That is what we want to know. We are presenting to you, said, look, they have no reason to fight. As brothers, a prophecy had been made. You talk about prophecies. In the book of Genesis chapter 17, where God Almighty promised to Abraham, he said, "I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger."
Sorry, sir.
You're not listening? You see, you pose the question, you're reading the letter. Now, how can you be listening to me?
Somebody gave this to me.
You're not right, but first you listen to me. I'm answering your question.
It's a Muslim lady that gave this to me. Okay, I'm sorry.
All these people are waiting and you're reading the letter. Now, what do I do? Please, brother. So a prophecy was made. God promising Abraham, "I will give you and your seed after you all the land of Canaan for an everlasting possession, and I will be the God." Now the Jews are programmed, brainwashed into thinking that they are the only sons and seeds of Abraham, because they discount Ishmael, forgetting that in the book of Genesis, no less than 12 places God Almighty speaks about Ishmael. As Ishmael, he says, "As for Ishmael, I have heard thee. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation, because he is thy seed. And as for Ishmael thy son, and as for Ishmael thy seed," no less than 12 places, which the Jew ignores. If he only recognizes his own book, that look, Ishmael as the firstborn, according to the Jewish law, he has more rights than the secondborn. And the Bible tells you that even if the child, the firstborn, is the son of a hated wife, even then you can't disinherit him. Whether you like him or you don't, he has his full inheritance. So they forget. Therefore, now this booklet of mine, you go home and you read it. It gives you all the explanation why this sickness, how the sickness is developed, and what are the answers to those sicknesses. It's all given to you.
Will you then, Mr. Dida, quote, like you so rightfully quoted now, about the seed of Abraham? Will you then so rightfully quote what I have just quoted now, also about Ishmael?
What about Ishmael?
Will you then please quote?
I quoted you.
You never quoted.
I'm quoting you the verses. Do you know the Bible?
But you didn't quote this.
Chapter 17.
Chapter 16.
Open chapter 17 of the Bible.
But will you please quote to the people chapter 16, verses 11 to 12?
You read it?
No, will you please quote it to them? You've got the Bible. You use the Bible for the other questions. Why not open the Bible now?
Point of order. You have read, sir, you have read the quotation from the Bible. which you had the right to quote, which you did. Mr. Deedat has given you even further quotations in addition to what you have read. I therefore believe that the answer that you have been to the question you've been posing has been answered by both you and the speaker. Thank you very much. All right, I will allow the gentleman in front here one more question, and then I would like to say that the lady who has posed the question appears to be a bit stage fright. I will read the question for her after your question has been answered, sir.
Mr. Findley, do you believe that after your discussion now about Israel, that is set up for destruction, or are they set up for destruction? Do you believe after all they have done, after all this, Can I speak this way? With all Israel's sin and their waywardness from God, whom God has chosen as a chosen nation, do you believe that God has now rejected them because of the sins that they're committing? Mr.
I did not come here as a religious scholar in any sense. I'm not one. But I'll be glad to respond to your question. If one takes literally the words of the Old Testament, then it is very clear that the Israelites of that day were chosen of God, but chosen in the servant sense, not the leader sense. It's also easily demonstrated that the compact made with God in that period was violated by the Israelites, so that any promise that God had made to them as chosen people in regard to the land was abrogated by their own violations.
Could I read the question now, posed by a Muslim sister? I have no idea where she is. I do not know who she expects to answer, either Paul Findley or Ahmad Deedat. But the question is, what role has South Africa played in the oppression of the Palestinian people? Is it here or here? This one or this one? Who should answer? Paul Findley, can the lady show me? This side or that side? This side, Mr. Deedat.
Thank you, sister. What role has South Africa played in this oppression by the Israelis of the Palestinians? The role is both are as like Siamese twins. The Jews, see, the Israelis and the South African government are like Siamese twins. See, they are the only two nations on earth which are all both opting for the same thing: apartheid, keeping people apart, oppressing people, exploiting people. So as such now, they ought to be, because South Africa has got no friends, and Israel really, besides the United States, also has no friends. So they have to get together.
I speak as a Christian. I asked the question of Mr. Findley. The question was raised earlier on: why is there such a big lobby in the United States Congress against the Arab states? And I asked him, and I think he agrees with me, I did speak to him, it's based upon the false Christian doctrine of premillennialism, which tries to put Christ back on the physical throne in Jerusalem. And so the people in the United States who lobby against the Arabs are scared that they're going to blaspheme God if they don't allow this to happen. But my question to him is it not true that the doctrine of premillennialism is false? And in fact, in Christianity, there's neither Jew nor Greek, male nor female, bond nor free. We are all one together.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. One day in rural Illinois, when I was seeking re-election to Congress, a young man, a very serious young man who was then an official of the county government, came to me and he said, with nothing in the way of malice in his manner, he said with greatest sincerity, I must warn you, what you are saying and attempting to do in regard to the Middle East is going against God's will. You are going against God's plan, and I fear for you. And he was very serious. This man believed in the doctrine of millennialism. Yes. He also believed in biblical prophecy, under which God granted to the people of Israel the right to certain land in the Middle East. He believed that the day of judgment will come, and in his view, the sooner the better. And when that day comes, there will be a great battle on the plain of Armageddon between the forces of good and evil. And Christians will be raptured above the battle and be safe. And in that battle, the forces of good will triumph. And all of the Jews on earth at that moment will either be destroyed or converted instantly to Christianity. Now, this young man was not an isolated figure in my district. There are thousands of people in my constituency who believe exactly as he did. And when one takes the entire nation as a whole, there are probably 40 million American citizens that hold to that doctrine. This means that they support Israel. They want Israel to be strong until that moment of Armageddon. They believe it is their duty as Christians to give every bit of political support they can to the military strength of the State of Israel. 40 million American citizens holding to this notion of biblical prophecy that I don't believe at all. Most American Christians reject it, but still there is this enormous body of Christians who do support this idea. And they, in effect, are a part of the lobby for the State of Israel in America today. They cannot be ignored. They're difficult to reason with, but they are there, and they are effective, and it's part of the problem that we face.
Thank you. That's very well.
Thank
A
you.
question to the ex-Congressman Paul Findley, please. Mr. Findley, a quick glance at your book, I see the first edition was in 1985. You were a congressman for 22 years, which I assume was from 1960 onwards. Is that correct? Now, the question here is, when exactly did you start with your sort of crusade against the American aid to Israel? Was it before the 67 war or after the 67 war?
The question the gentleman has posed to me is, when was it that I began to speak out about Middle East policy? It happened quite by accident. One of my constituents was arrested in faraway South Yemen. He was accused of espionage by the government of South Yemen and arrested and put in prison. I had to go to South Yemen to plead for his release. And in the process, I heard for the first time the Israeli side of the problem. I heard from I should say the Arab side of the problem. I talked to the president of Syria. I talked with officials in Lebanon. I talked with many officials in South Yemen. And after that experience, I began to speak out. That was in 1973, March of 1973.